Over 15,000 books have been banned across the United States in the last 4 years, forbidden in 43 states, outlawed in over 400 school districts. The censorship targets mostly books about race or racism, with people of colour or LGBTQ plus topics. Books that have been banned include The Kite Runner, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Handmaid's Tale, but also a number of children's picture books, like Draw Me a Star, written by Eric Carle, who's also the author of The Hungry Caterpillar. And it's not just the prose in books that are being curtailed. President Donald Trump has passed orders to get rid of gender, diversity, inclusion from all federal documents. Well, to take a look at the reasons behind all of this and the impact it is having, we can speak now to Senior Programme Manager, Freedom to Read at PEN America, Sabrina Baeta. Thanks so much for your time. Can I start by asking you just to give us a clearer picture on all of this? To what extent is censorship on books increasing in the US? It sounds quite alarming from outside.
Right, and it is quite alarming because, as you described, this is a nationwide issue that we've witnessed. What you just referenced is in public schools in the United States. That is what our research focuses on. And public schools in the United States, up until now, have been able to largely be able to show a pluralistic, full education, but more and more we're seeing that certain topics, certain materials, and of course, certain books are being targeted.
And from what I read, it seems that there's been this increased censorship since 2021. I mean, what happened then to lead to this?
Yeah, so this started with organized groups on the ground, but they were coordinated. So these were groups on the ground that were going to school districts and deciding, calling for bans of books, calling for certain materials to be removed, doing challenges, by the hundreds at a time. It moved up to a state level. And then if you think about the impact that that can have on an entire state, that it's every district is affected. And now you've already hinted that we're concerned about this happening at the nationwide level, at the federal level, and affecting the public schools, across the nation. So it started, yes, in 2021, but it's really been an effort that as we've been able to diversify shelves, as we've been able to offer more representation for different groups, this is a backlash to that.
And the groups, these on the ground groups, I mean, what type of people, what type of groups are they?
They're Christian nationalist groups largely. They're right wing groups largely. That is what they espouse, and that is what they claim to be themselves. So that is not me putting any kind of label on them. And they're trying to espouse those values and their ideologies onto, not just their own students, but everybody else's students.
Because before we look at how the process would work to go to ban a book, I mean, give us an idea of the types of books that they're banning. There seems to be clear themes that are being targeted.
Yes, you've already, done a wonderful example of showing what types of books. So those are books with characters or people of color. Those are books that deal with race and racism, the real history of race and racism in the United States, books about LGBTQ people and characters, as well as ones that have sexual references and reference sexual violence or sexual assault. And within these books, we've also seen other categories of books with visuals have been heavily targeted, including, like you mentioned, picture books, something as innocuous as, a picture book that has two moms. That is something that is being banned.
But a lot of the picture books, I mean, if it's a certain group of Christians with their certain beliefs, the two moms, I can see how they might want to challenge that. But a lot of the books, it just seems like they're calling for inclusion. There's one about a rabbit that wears a woolly jumper. There's also a question of how we sexualize things that aren't necessarily sexual. There was a book about unicorns and glitter that also got banned because there's a goblin in it and we can see his bum, which makes me think, why isn't Donald Duck then censored?
That is a great question, and perhaps one I ask myself every day. But I always say the only trait all of these banned books have that defines them all together in one place is that they've been banned. It's not because they even all share the same kind of content It is simply because they've ended up on this ban list.
And what impact is that having then, that ban? I mean, because it seems like it's over 40 states have put quite a number of books on their banned list. So what impact, what are people not getting to read, more or less?
Yes, so over 40 states have had some kind of banning activity within, one or more school districts. And it's detrimental. It's detrimental to the students who no longer have access to those materials. Also, we are looking at materials that were previously available. So these, a school library is not randomly stocked. Expert librarians chose these books for these library shelves, and they were removed based on the content. So these are books that were supposed to be available to students. We're supposed to help them through, either for entertainment, for educational knowledge, or because it's age relevant to them. And now they don't have access to that book anymore. And it's detrimental also to the librarians and teachers who are being harassed and targeted by the people who are pushing for books to be banned.
And who actually makes the decision to ban the book? Because you have the grassroots groups that, pushing for their cause, but who actually removes them from the shelves?
So you ask another great question that we've been asking ourselves in this movement, because people that we would not think could remove books are suddenly removing books. We've seen a lot of self-censorship of school districts who are afraid of getting in trouble. So it may be even school administrators or officials who are removing the books, but we've also seen that they're responding largely to what they think are directives from their states, either through vague legislation or due to the fear and intimidation by these parent groups. And I say parent groups, but really they're, book banning groups.
And we've looked at the impact on students not getting access to these books. Do you think there's also an impact on authors?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm from Pen America. We are an author membership organization, and we've been serving authors for over 100 years. That is why we are involved in this fight, because it is hugely detrimental to authors, especially this affects mostly, young adult and younger authors. So they are writing these books for these audiences. So it has an emotional toll on them when they're told that, their careers that they dedicated towards crafting these materials for young people are being banned based on the content, a lot of times their own lived experiences. But it's also detrimental in very, logistical ways. It's detrimental to their income, it's detrimental to their careers.
And how do you go about acting as a counterweight to these bans then?
Yeah, so we try to bring a lot of public awareness to these bans, because one of the first things I heard when I was first reporting on this 3 years ago is, but it's the United States. Book bans aren't happening here. We are supposed to be a country that espouses free expression and freedom of speech. And this seems so against any of our principles. So we try to bring great public awareness to this cause, as well as uplift these crisis cases of where this is happening so that people can fight in their communities.
And finally, I mean, again, the surge seems to have started 3 years ago, so it's not a thing linked to the current president of the United States. But we have seen what he has called for when it comes to federal documents. He also wants to curtail a lot of language. How do you see things under the current presidency?
Yeah, exactly as you have talked about, this is a larger movement. It's the movement that maybe underpins all of this. And we have grave concerns that this next administration has absolutely pointed to limiting more of this content, what we've seen at a state level, doing that at the federal level.
Okay, Sabrina Baeta of Pen America will have to leave it there, but thank you so much for staying up and joining us here